3, 4.
Welcome to A Fistful of Might, the adversarial libertarian interview podcast, a supplemental podcast to the Lolberts podcast, available at thelolberts.com. This podcast is covered by a Creative Commons Zero license, no rights reserved, but all mights reserved. Today we'll be sitting down with Dan Taxationist Theft Behrman. He is a software engineer, podcaster, YouTuber, and presidential hopeful running for the Libertarian Party nomination for presidency of the United States of America. So, how are you, man?
I'm doing pretry good.
Sounds good. So, you're running for president. Why you?
That I am. Why not? No, I think it's a great question. I mean, I think, the first thing we have to look at is why a libertarian, or why someone who's not Democrat or Republican, and I think that's pretty obvious for most people. They're getting tired of this two-party system jerking us around and ripping us off and stealing from us and sending us to war. And once we get to the understanding that we need someone that's not from the two major parties, I think I'm probably the best option, because my ability to message with people who are coming from the Democrat and the Republican Party to understand that this libertarian philosophy is the best for them.
Okay. And I know there's a lot of other... I probably should have led with this question, but whatever. So do you consider yourself like an anarchist or a small government type, or decline to comment?
Man, is getting into labels. I try to stay away from labels just because, I could call myself, I don't know, I used to identify as an ANCAP, but plenty of anarchists say I'm not an anarchist. I don't really fit into a specific group, because I really like to take my ideology and basically be able to go to say, to an anarchist and say, hey, with my philosophy, your anarchy is totally acceptable. I could go to a libertarian and say, with my philosophy, your ideology is totally acceptable. That's really the big picture, is to come up with a system that's acceptable for everybody. And, we've even got people who are, they call themselves libsocs, or libertarian socialists, or anarcho-communists, or, all these weird varieties. As long as we can find a way that, something that allows you, if you want to live in a commune, fine, go for it. But if we can figure out a way where we can all kind of coexist without treading on each other, then I think that's the best way to go.
Okay. Yeah, because anytime I ever talk to anyone about labels and stuff like that, everybody's just like, oh, this person's not a libertarian because they don't agree with this. Or I've had people tell me that David D. Friedman isn't a real libertarian, even though he's an ANCAP. He just doesn't subscribe to the non-aggression principle. So it's like everybody has their different definitions of things, so I can understand that. But there's
totally.
There's like other candidates that are in the running. Like, do you like any of them? Like, would you endorse any of them had you not been running? Or is there a reason why you think you're better than them?
Well, I'm just awesome. No, I think most of the people that are running that I've met and had the pleasure of actually spending time with and talking to, or debating, I think they're really awesome people. There are a couple that I'm kind of like, but I don't want to say too much about it publicly, because I haven't had that much time to get to know. And then there are some that are kind of on the horizon that have not officially announced, and some people are trying to recruit them. And those people, I'm looking at their history and where they came from and what they're all about, and it's really hard to say that I could endorse them. So, I'm trying to keep an open mind with that. But when Gary Johnson got the nomination in 2016, I even went in thinking like, okay, McAfee's my guy, but if Johnson wins, I'll still support him. And then he won, and then he gave this victory speech. And as soon as he gave the victory speech and he said taxation is theft and everybody cheered for him, I was like, that's a lie. You just lied to everybody because I know you don't believe taxation is theft. Mm-hmm. And it was like at that point, I was just like, okay, you're a libertarian, quote unquote, but I can't support you.
Yeah. I mean, I think libertarianism is I'm a big tent guy, so I'm okay with minarchists calling themselves libertarian. I know a lot of people don't, but it's just like,
like that was the thing. Like, even though like he was pushing the fair tax and everything else, and I was like, okay, but he's still mostly libertarian. I'll totally support that. But then it was just like the fact that he was lying and pandering. I was like, that's like red flag.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, taxation is theft unless it's fair.
Right. There's no such thing as a fair tax.
And there was the fair tax isn't fair and the flat tax isn't flat.
Right.
That was actually good. That was a good little lecture that I learned, saw. But there's not too many opportunities that I get to ask this question. It would be you and the Pope, but I have to ask, like, what's with the hat?
Oh man, don't you just love it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I do.
So, so that actually came from the Johnson thing, and kind of when I had my my parting of ways from what the Libertarian Party decided to do. I started going around the convention after I heard him give his victory speech, and I was asking everybody, is taxation theft? And I got either yes, of course it is, or for some reason it always started out with well, and then like some excuse about how it's not theft. And then the clear divide was the people who said no were the Johnson supporters, and everybody else, basically voted for one of the other candidates. And so when I saw that, I was like, okay, I need to, first of all, I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm gonna start spreading the message that taxation is theft throughout the world. And I started the brand of the podcast, the online shop with swag and everything, taxationistheft.cards, the stamps where you could stamp your money that says taxation is theft. And I got a table at the 2018 convention to sell all this stuff and get this out there to the libertarians. Even though we had like this big online presence already. And I was just like, okay, I need more stuff. So I was like, what can I do? How can I make this huge? I got the 8x8 foot backdrop that said taxation is theft all over it. I had yard signs. I had, everything. And I was like, I need more. What's the icing on the cake? What's the cherry on top? What is it? And I just came up with the hat. And that was that. So I started walking around the convention, and it worked so well. And everybody loved it so much that I just decided to keep that as part of the taxation is theft branding.
That's fair enough. I'm a big fan of the Residents. I don't know if you're familiar with that band.
No.
Okay. The Residents, they're very big on kind of like having a little icon, which is the top hat and the eyeballs. So, I mean, it's recognizable. Like you see that hat and you're going to be like, oh, that's that guy. Or you see the eyeball on the top hat and you see that, you can see the outline of the Simpsons and you know right away, like it's iconic. So, oh yeah, guys, yeah, that's not a bad idea. It's attention grabbing.
Yeah, and it works really great for memes too, because you can just take like a movie where something happens that's very anti-tax, or like what's his name from Parks and Recreation. Why can't I think of his name? But whenever Swanson. He does, Ron Swanson. Anytime he does anything, you just like throw the hat on him, and it's like all of a sudden it's a campaign meme. Yeah. And so it works really well. Yeah.
And taxation is theft is your middle name. Now you said that it's. What was it? It's legally not your middle name, but not officially. What is? How did you?
I changed it lawfully, but not legally. Okay. So basically, it's my name. I get to decide what I'm called. So I changed it by declaration, which is legal according to the law. You can change your own name by declaration, but it's a different process than going to the court and asking, "Please, master, can I change my name?" Yeah. Because free men don't ask for permission. So it's my name. It's not theirs. I'm the one who decides. If I want to change it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm Jim Jesus. That's what everyone. I mean, my friends call me that, so I guess that's. Would that be lawful since I've declared it?
I mean, like, yeah,
I get mail as Jim Jesus too. So
exactly. I mean, you could use that name as you get your phone bill or your cable bill. You're allowed to use that name.
Oh, nice.
So this was actually really interesting because I was trying to figure out how to unplug myself from the system and kind of go off grid. And I found out that
is that why your electricity's out right now and your thing's beeping?
No,
we should mention that because I'm sure someone's like, why is that beeping in the background? Yeah, your power's out at the moment. Okay.
Yeah. So it's funny. I had this friend for 10 years. Whenever I would talk to him on the phone, I would hear the same beeping in the background, but it was his smoke detectors, and the batteries were just always low for 10 years. I don't know. They never died. They were just always beeping.
Well, now you know what to get him for Christmas. Just get him a pack of 9-volt batteries. There you go.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, no, I'm down here in Mexico, and we just had a little rainstorm, and the power went out. So it's state operated electricity. So, for people who think the government is great at building infrastructure, no, when it's a private corporation and the power goes out, they make sure to get that power back on within like minutes.
Yeah, they're losing money.
Yeah, exactly. When it's the government, it's like, we don't care.
Yeah. Not my problem. Pass the buck.
Yeah, exactly. Like they'll leave the power out for days, and they don't care that they're losing money because it's a government operation. There's no profit or shareholders or anything else.
Yeah. Speaking of Mexico, you're in Mexico. So tell me, what are your thoughts on immigration since you got your ground on the feet over there? Your feet on the ground, rather. So I've been hanging out with Patrick from Disenthrall too much, and the whole like putting your ass where your mouth is stuff. It's like, what? Wait, huh?
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. I've learned a lot being down here, and as far as immigration, I mean, I haven't seen any rapists or murderers while I'm down here. There's, we do have the problem of drug cartels and everything, but even, I live near some big tourist cities where cartels are killing each other, and the police will find severed heads or severed bodies, I guess, in the middle of the street, and on display, like this is the warning sign, but they usually leave or they have left in the past messages for the tourists that basically say, tourists, don't be afraid. This is just gangs versus gangs. We're not here to hurt tourists. Keep bringing your money and buying our stuff and spending your money here. So it is really interesting. And if you think about it, that's what a lot of crime is in the US. Like, yes, innocent people get robbed and murdered and all kinds of bad things happen, but you have a lot of gang on gang crime, and that's not something that most ordinary citizens are worried about. If you're not dealing drugs on someone else's territory, you don't have to worry about being murdered.
Yeah.
So
it's not really reassuring, though, is it, though? Like you see a severed head, you're walking around at the doors like, yee, and it's like, don't worry, you're safe. It's just these other guys. It's like, how am I, though?
Right. I mean, look, here's the thing. You look at the actual crime statistics, and Mexico's savage. I mean, look, they'll print, there's a dead body. You've got the picture of the body with like blood pouring out everywhere on the cover of the local newspaper, and they'll just shamelessly, why can't I talk, post everything.
I'm giving it to you.
But when you look at like the papers in the US, they'll show like a mugshot of somebody and say like, murder, like all these horrible crimes, and they'll show mugshots. Like they don't show all these graphic pictures. So I think like some of it is the culture of what's acceptable and what's not, and then you kind of put them in the same framework, and Mexico looks scarier. But when you look at the actual crime stats per capita and a lot of other stuff, a lot of Mexican cities are much safer than American cities. So you just hear about it more in Mexico.
Oh, okay. So how'd you get into Liberty? Like what was your moment, I guess, if anything?
I would say the first one was probably when I was in high school selling candy bars, and I got busted for that. I saw all the other kids. Yeah. I mean, all the other kids were selling their candy bars, but they were like, these like shitty, those little generic chocolate, whatever they're called, $1 a bar.
Yeah.
And I was like, man. And I went down to like the local, it was called the Smart and Final. It was kind of like a Costco or something.
Yeah, we have Smart and Finals here. I love them.
Yeah. So I bought like the big, like king size, so I had like these king size Snickers and Butterfingers and everything, like the good stuff. And I was selling them for $1 a piece, and I was making like 50 cents profit on them. And I got caught. And I'm like, wait, what am I getting caught for? Is I see all the other kids. Oh, you have to be a part of a school-sanctioned fundraising program in order to blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, that's a bunch of bullshit. You're supposed to be teaching me, like, I'm supposed to be in school. I'm supposed to be learning about how free this country is and the American way, starting a business, pulling myself up, but my bootstraps and all that. And it's like, oh, no, you can't sell, you can't buy a product and sell it for a higher price, especially not on school grounds. That's it.
So you could break even though, right?
I was turning. Oh no.
I mean, theoretically, if they were telling you couldn't turn a profit, like
right.
what if you just told them like, oh, I'm just breaking even. I'm just doing this as a public service because your other chocolates weren't good.
That's I don't know. I never tried that, but well,
Get
here's
yourself a time machine and try it out, and then let me know.
Right? No, here's the interesting thing. The rules don't really matter because these guys they're really just tyrants. Can I swear?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fucking tyrants.
Okay.
So there was this kid who was supporting my campaign, and he was like, "Man, I love what you're doing. Can you send me some stuff?" So we sent him a hat and some flyers and stuff, and he was gonna give it out to his friends and everything. And he's wearing his hat at school. This is in Florida, and we did this. We there was a story posted about it. But basically, they told him you can't wear your hat. It's not allowed by school policy. And he said, "Well, but wait a minute. You said the school policy before in one of these school meetings. The policy was you can wear your hats as long as it's in the outdoor area where he was." And they said, no, that's not the policy. You can't wear hats at all. And so, he told me about this. We looked up the law. The school didn't actually have any policy published on their website, but we went to the state law, and the state's law says schools can make their own policies about clothing or, whatever, dress code. But there are certain exceptions, and one of them was students are always allowed to wear hats in outdoor areas. So he went back to the school. He was suspended for a week. He went back to the school anyway. He printed out the law. He brought it in with his mom when they had the teacher conference and everything to get him back into the school. And they showed them state law, and the school said, "Well, that law doesn't apply here. We make our own policies." Like, it's literally tyranny. We don't need to pass a law. We're just going to enforce it anyway. And what can you do?
Right.
Like, it's insane.
And you can't fire them because the union rules that they have there.
And you could take your kids out and you could say, we'll do homeschool or we'll do private school, but you're still paying for the public school, even if you're not going there.
Yep.
So it's like you're paying double now.
Yeah, I had an experience not like that, but no. I remember there was a time where I had a 311 shirt, and we had this really overzealous vice principal who was banning like anything that she even heard remotely. Was like we weren't allowed to wear safety pins because that meant white supremacy, even if a black person wore it. But one of them was 311 shirts. And this was in the 90s, so 311 was super popular, and I was in junior high. Of course, I'm going to listen to 311. But we couldn't wear 311 shirts because that meant 3 times the 11th letter, which is KKK. And it's like, wait, one of their singers is Hispanic. What are you even talking about?
That's that's the phone number to get my water service turned on.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. I mean, this one's a little bit worse, but when I was in middle school, I think the big controversy was the bad religion T-shirts because it said bad religion and it had a cross on it. And of course, that's
circle crossed through it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's anti-cross. That's anti-Christ.
Yeah.
Anti-religion. Yeah. So that was, but yeah, it's a thin line.
Yep.
And it's a slippery slope.
Yep. But I was allowed to wear it because my dad raised a fuss. He was like, it doesn't mean that. Their singer's Hispanic. He's wearing it to school today. And they just let me wear it from now on. And I think they probably end up changing it. Who knows after I left.
Yeah, and like the idea is it's supposed to prevent disturbances while students are trying to learn. But it's like it doesn't have to create a disturbance. It just has to piss off a teacher who, thinks like, oh, you damn little millennial kids with your rock band music garbage. It's like... That's all, and especially when you're talking about so the hat that this kid got banned for, it said taxation is theft. And a lot of school administrators hate that because no, taxation is my paycheck. So yeah, they see it a little bit different.
Yeah. So what got you into the LP?
I actually it was kind of by coincidence. I was I had just watched America, Freedom to Fascism, and I was learning about how the IRS is a scam, and that kind of turned me on to Ron Paul and I think it was the We the People organization, which kind of turned me on to the Tea Party, which at the time was just being hijacked by the Republicans.
Yep.
And I was just looking for like-minded people that could fight this fight with me, because I was already fighting the IRS on my own taxes at the time, because I was getting robbed. I didn't want to pay it. I've always kind of been like into, okay, I want to learn something new. What can I do? Going to meetups, improving my photography and everything else. So one of the things I was like was public speaking. Okay, so I found a Liberty Toastmasters group, which just so happened to be, and I still had no idea what the Libertarian Party was at this point, never heard of them. But I go to the Liberty Toastmasters group, and it turns out it's run by the Bexar County LP, and I got along with them really well, and they brought me in, and that's that story.
Oh, okay. That's fair. Yeah, I used to be involved in the LP, and then I left because they nominated Bob Barr. So, but I've been kind of sticking my toe in every once in a while to see what's going on. And and then when I moved here to Vegas, I got kind of sort of involved with them, and then Brett Prohanis left, and I kind of fell off. But
Vegas is awesome because you've got some great people out there. I mean, Erwin Schiff was out of Vegas most of the time. Mm-hmm. You've got Joe Bannister and Dave Champion out there.
And unfortunately, we have David Wayne. No, what was his name? Wayne Allen Root. We also have him here, unfortunately. But he left the LP, so everybody's like, yes, all right. But I mean, if he ran for office, like if he ran for some office, it'd be tempting to be like, yeah, he's not nearly as bad as the other Republicans, but he's still really terrible. It's tempting. So yeah,
I mean, that's, I've kind of taken that approach myself, because I realize there are a lot. I mean, the LP is a huge organization. Of course, there's going to be people you disagree with. And I've kind of been going through this journey and figuring out, exactly where my place is with them and what I can do outside of them to promote the ideas of liberty. So it's kind of, I've got 1 foot in and 1 foot out.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think the LP is useful. I mean, I don't know about you. You're running for office, so you probably have a very different opinion. But I think that they're more useful in using that stage to convey the messages rather than actually getting people elected. But if they can, it's better. It's better than nothing.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing. Like, it's not like people are just going to say, oh, well, we're sick of Democrats and Republicans, let's vote for libertarians. Like, we need to... we need to change that conversation in the entire country. And once people start talking like, oh yeah, well, it looks like government keeps screwing everything up, maybe we should try less government. Once we get to that, then we'll start seeing libertarians get elected. But I mean, for now, everyone thinks, no, that idea of libertarianism is crazy. So it's our job to make sure that we get this idea out there. I mean, look, you look at Democrats and Republicans, and they've been creating those brands for the past 100 years. And everybody knows them, and they kind of know what they stand for, or they think they know what they stand for. They think Democrats are for working people, and Republicans and minorities, and Republicans are for lower taxes and business owners and the wealthy. Like, that's kind of the perceptions that people have in their heads. And when you ask about libertarians, like everyone's kind of clueless. They haven't created that brand yet, and that's something that takes a lot of time and a lot of energy teaching. And, so there's that question of, well, is your campaign to teach and educate people, or is it to win the office? And it's like, well, that's like asking, you're going on a road trip. Are you going to put gas in the car, or are you trying to get where you're going? Well, you got to put gas in the car if you're going to get where you're going. You have to change this conversation, and you have to teach this to millions of people if you want to get someone elected. So we have to fight for both, but we also have to realize that, it's not like, if there's one new Democrat who's never run before and one new Libertarian who's never run before, it's not an equal race. Just the fact that they have Democrat next to their name, they're part of that $1 billion brand. And we have to create that. We have to create the new $1 billion brand that's going to replace the old one. And that's where a lot of the effort has to come.
Okay. So I think we kind of skipped over because we got distracted by the cartels. But what was your stance on immigration? Are you for the wall or anything?
No, I'm very open borders. I've I myself have traveled to I don't know how many countries, and I've seen all the immigration processes and how ridiculous it is. And like you can look at it this way: immigration is restriction of movement of people. And governments also have, of course, restriction of movement of goods and services and money across borders. And it's all about money. That's always what it is. I mean, look, anybody can come to the U.S. if they have enough money. And the government's interest is in money. It has nothing to do with blocking people or anything else. Most of these politicians are solely interested in money. Who's going to give them money to allow them entry into the country? And this is why we see import-export controls with if you pay a tax, then yeah, you can get your stuff in here. And it's really destructive to our rights. I mean, we don't allow that type of restriction going from California to Texas or Nevada. Why not? And
maybe we should restrict immigration from California to Nevada, though.
Yeah, a lot of people are suggesting that.
Can we make California pay for the wall?
Actually, some people want to build the wall on the east side of California, so that California and Mexico are out there. But yeah, it's we don't do that, and we understand that has a lot to do with freedom. And it's kind of a human right when you look at it. Now, I understand at the same time we have a lot of issues at the border, and we can't just take down all of our defenses and allow everybody to just start walking across, because we have those problems which were created by government. But we can fix those problems by ending those programs, like the war on drugs and the welfare programs and everything else. You get rid of those programs and most of the problems go away overnight. So I think that's the first place to start. And I know it's idealistic, but I would love to just live in a world where there are no borders, where you can fly a plane from California to Texas without going through immigration, and then from Texas to Canada or Ukraine or Russia or China or Hong Kong or Australia, like anywhere, and not have to go through an explanation of who you are and where's your passport from and all this other nonsense.
Yep. I'm pretty much on board with that. Like, I've been going through a lot of changes in terms of my libertarianism. Like, I really flipped. We should talk about this. Since I did have a switch on abortion, like when I started the show, I was very pro-choice, and then I'm slowly starting, really slowly, because it's been many years, and I'm starting to go far more pro-choice, or excuse me, far more pro-life. But what say you?
So I get asked this a lot, and
this is the third rail, though, in libertarianism.
Right. Yeah, no, and it is the third rail, and a lot of libertarians say, well, as libertarians, we talk about this, but I think it is important to talk about. But I think I don't think we're at the place where we can actually have the real conversation yet. About which the real conversation is abortion murder, which everybody says, well, obviously, and then yes or no, but we can't agree on that. But before we have that conversation, we need to understand what it is that we're actually talking about, and we need to understand that this is an extremely polarized and emotional conversation, and most of the time when we get into a conversation, we usually just end up yelling and screaming our opinion, and we don't listen to the other person, when realistically both sides have good points. It's understandable that somebody wants to say you're killing a life, and that's murder. And then it's also understandable to say, yeah, but this is my body and I don't want the government to control what I do with my own body. They're both valid arguments. You get into all kinds of other conversations about, whether it's evicting a baby and all these other things. And yeah, we can have those conversations, which we should, but we have to get over this idea that we're right. And we have to be able to actually have a conversation and not just yell things at each other. And that said, what I've really started to come to believe about this conversation is that whatever the solution is, it's a societal issue and not a government issue. We can't just have the government come in and say, we're going to vote, and whoever has the majority, they're going to get their way. We can't have, we don't need a majority. We just need a handful of Congress people, a majority in the Congress, which is, 0.00001% of the entire population, to pass a law. And now it's legislated. We don't need that, because that doesn't represent the general public. What we need to get to a point where we can agree on some consensus. I mean, you look at some places in the Middle East where it's okay to chop somebody's hand off because they stole something. That's socially acceptable. That's just that it's not barbaric in their culture. It's just the way things are handled. And here we look at that and say, oh my God, that's barbaric. No, just put them in a jail cell for 10 years or make them repay the person they stole from somehow, right? We have a totally different approach, and that makes it a societal issue, not a government issue. And the same thing could be said about abortion, where you have, two different cultures, even within the United States, where one says, oh, you have an unwanted pregnancy, terminate it. And the other one that says, no, that's a human life. You cannot terminate it. It's a culture clash. And we need to first understand that. And then we need to get these cultures to have a civilized, rational conversation together. I know it's extremely difficult, but That's what needs to happen. And we need to figure out what is the best solution. And maybe it's not, maybe it's maybe there is some middle ground. That it doesn't have to be 100% pro-life or pro-choice. There might be some sort of compromise where everybody's happy. But if we're not having the real conversation, if we're just yelling at each other, then of course we're not going to compromise ever.
Yep. Yeah, and I've been looking at this rationally every time I talk about it. And I do that with every issue, even if it's really emotional. Even if it's emotional for me, and I mean, that's why I'm slowly making that thing, and I'm really listening to things. But yeah, those are two big things that it's like, is it a woman's body issue or is it murder? It's like, I don't know. When does it go into the machine? Eesh.
Right. And there's, I grew up in California, so I was very Democrat, very pro-choice. But then I read Ron Paul's book, and that actually got me to think very much pro-life. But I can still, like I said, I can still see the valid arguments on both sides. Now, at the same time, you hear all kinds of crazy shit that's thrown out that's like, oh, but what about rape and incest and everything else? And apparently that accounts for something like 1% of abortions, and even that accounts for 1% of what is it? Is it 1% of abortions or something like that? But most of the people in those situations who do have a child from rape or incest usually decide that they want to keep the baby anyway, like 30 or 60% or something. So it's like when you start bringing up those arguments, it's like, yeah, but that's a very, very small population. Let's talk about the bulk majority, which are just people who are, they're fooling around, having sex with everybody and getting pregnant and not really caring about it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's the bigger issue. So we don't want to mix in now rape and incest and try to say, let's use that to justify the other 99% of these scenarios. But again, that's kind of outside of the conversation of, okay, but is it still a life, and does this person deserve to be murdered because of because of the way that they were created, and when does life begin, and all these other interesting philosophical questions that we could talk about all day.
Yep. So I think there's an election coming up for chairman, right? For the LP. What is it called? What is it?
Yeah, for the chair. Yeah, it's chair.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on Nick Sarwark and the candidates that are running so far, or do you not have an opinion?
I think Nick is not running. I think he's kind of stepping down from what I understand. I've seen a lot of campaigning from Josh Smith, who's really awesome. He actually ran in 2018 and didn't quite make it. He was
the one with the mohawk.
That is Mike. What's his name?
Anyways,
we call him Mike.
Yeah, okay. Let's call him Mike.
I totally suck for not remembering his last name right now.
You have to know everybody's name, right? What is Aleppo?
I do.
No. I'm just teasing.
I'm Googling it right now.
I think I know who you're talking about. It's not the guy that runs the Libertarian in Chair Twitter account.
No,
it's the other guy. So yeah, I saw them debate, and I did like that. The guy that wasn't that and didn't have the mohawk. That was a guy I liked. So if you're bad with names, I'm terrible with names too.
And yeah, and I mean, look, they're both great guys. I think Josh Smith has been kind of pushing something that's really important to me, and I think that's kind of probably why I side with him a little bit more at this point. And that's the advertising and marketing. And, it goes back to what I said before, like we're competing against these billion-dollar brands. The Libertarian Party has not spent a dime that I know of advertising the Libertarian Party. I mean, look at Coca-Cola. When I was like in my 20s, I went to Tonga, which nobody even knows where this is, but it's near Fiji. It's like in the middle of the South Pacific. It's this little tiny island. We got off the plane, like we walked from the plane into an airport, which was like a bungalow to go through immigration. And then from there, we got into like a little minivan, and we drove through like grass fields on dirt roads and everything to get to the city, which was like, an hour away. And in the middle of this, there's little shacks on the side of the road, like, not even any place to stop for gas, just little shacks put together with a couple of 2x4s and some compressed wood boards. And on the side of these things are painted by hand, huge Coca-Cola logos. And Coca-Cola actually invested, like, these aren't people who just like Coke so much they decided to build a little shack and paint this thing. No, Coca-Cola pays them to paint their little shacks Coca-Cola in the middle of nowhere, and they do this all around the world. And that's why they're such a huge brand, and that's why they're so well known and like it around the entire world. You have to spend money on advertising, and the Libertarian Party, I haven't seen a penny spent on any real kind of advertising and branding like that. And that's what's really, really missing. And we need that. And I think Josh Smith has been pushing that idea. I don't know if he's totally in it the way that I see it, but I think he definitely sees that, like, that's the direction we need to go into. We need an advertising marketing campaign. We need to build the brand so people know what the Libertarian brand is. And when they start seeing the candidates, they start supporting them. They start learning from them and spreading that information. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big fan of Gary Vaynerchuk, so I'm really aware of marketing and stuff. And nice. I did not know that they were not spending money on marketing. That's concerning.
I mean, I don't want to say they're not spending any at all, but I think that I don't see them running social media ads. I don't see them running Super Bowl ads, which obviously are ridiculously expensive, but they're not. Yeah, I just don't see. I mean, I know they're sending out newsletters and other stuff, and I really don't want to talk shit about what they're not doing, because I'm sure they're doing something, but I think what they are doing is just really small, and it needs to be a lot, much, much more.
Yeah. I mean, just having I remember the LP in Nevada had a podcast for a while, and I don't think they're doing it anymore. I mean, just having a podcast, that's really great marketing. I mean, a lot of people just find stuff.
Right.
Every once in a while, I'll just go through the iTunes. Well, I use a podcatcher that uses the iTunes store for a search engine. But I mean, like, I just look for stuff on there, and I find all kinds of stuff on there, and that's how I learn about a lot of different things. It's just like, oh, I didn't even hear about this new technology yet. But I've heard of Bitcoin. But like, there could be lots of people who could just stumble on a podcast and be like, oh, now I know all about Bitcoin, just because people are podcasting about it. And if you're doing it yourself, I mean, hey, that's good marketing. But
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's I've gotten a huge amount of exposure just doing podcasts. We've done a ton of podcasts, I think like 40 something so far, and we get people messaging us from the campaign. Like, hey, yeah, I heard you on such and such podcast, and we're like, hey, that's awesome. And we really want to. I mean, we want to reach out even further, and we want to get. We're working on getting some like very left, like even like some like total commie podcasts. To have us on to have a civil discussion about libertarianism versus communism, and yeah, that's the thing. We can't just keep talking in the echo chamber either. We need to get these ideas out to other people who think differently about different things, and we need to figure out the messaging to those different niches. And there's so many different ways that we can do this, but it really comes down to having an effective strategy and just getting it out there, even if you got to do, running paid ads. We've been doing that with this campaign, and we've gotten over 1 million people to see our videos that say taxation is theft, and how do you have a libertarian healthcare system that's better than what Bernie Sanders is offering. And that's huge, because now you're getting people to think in a completely different way. So we just need more of that. And it hasn't, I mean, compared to what the LP's annual budget is, we haven't spent a fraction of that.
Oh, wow.
So if we can get the LP to do that sort of thing with the budget that they have, it could really, really be huge.
Yeah. I mean, if they should really look into just having a Libertarian Party podcast, officially Libertarian Party podcast. That's not a bad idea.
Right.
Speaking of communists, though, we should delve right into a little foreign policy. So, what are your thoughts on North Korea? I know there was a little bit of talk from North Korea a few years ago. I remember, what was it? Nick's, I don't know who runs. Maybe it was Nick Sarwark. Maybe it's not. I don't know who runs the Libertarian Party Twitter. But there was a tweet that they released a few years ago, and they since deleted it, where they said that North Korea is the most libertarian party because they have no taxes and they have legal weed, and they got a lot of backlash from it. So what are your thoughts about North Korea and the state that it's in right now?
I haven't heard that before.
Yeah. This was a while ago. It kind of, I don't think a lot of people remember it because they deleted it once. Because I think Michael Malice chomped at him after that happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, look, you have a lot of countries around the world. I can talk about Uganda because I've been there, and this was interesting. What's that?
Hasadiga Ibowai.
Oh,
Book of Mormon. You ever seen that play?
Yeah.
You have to see it. It's great.
Yeah. No. So what's interesting is like, I mean, look, you have. I was out there because I met these libertarians. I met some total strangers in Uganda, and I totally went out just to hang out with them. But it was awesome because they're libertarian, and I got to see how their government works and their opinion on their government and everything. And it's really interesting to see. Now, it's not North Korea, but they are very restrictive on their free speech. We were at a university. We were having a talk about liberty, and they didn't have a license. And they told me after the entire event was over that because they didn't have a license, if the government knew that they were there having this event, that they could have sent the military in and arrested everybody just for organizing, just for speaking. They're not as well organized as North Korea, but they are very totalitarian. So, but what's interesting is like the United States, not even the United States, but most of these people in the Libertarian Party or in the liberty groups of Uganda, and they had people coming from all over Africa. They understand that like foreign aid is a bad thing. They're not asking for the United States to come in and help. They're asking for individuals like myself to go and help and spread their ideas and give their information. And they're trying to spread their information within their own communities. And what's really important about that is, like, we can't fix their problems by sending a military over and just shutting down their government or replacing it with something else, or it doesn't work that way. I mean, the same thing wouldn't work here. If I could just somehow go up to the White House and kick the door in and say, "Ha, I'm king president now," that wouldn't turn this into a libertarian country, because the people are still not libertarian, and they would hate me for that, and they would say, "No, get this guy out of here. Let's put Trump back in, or somebody like Trump," because that's what they want. The same in North Korea. I know a lot of people don't like that government, but a lot of people do actually worship that government. It's not necessarily out of a desire, but out of a fear to continue supporting that. But once you awaken that desire for freedom within people, and you get them over those fears of what the government's going to do to them, then you can actually start to create a free society. So more importantly than saying, North Korea is a bad place and we should go to war with them, or we should implement sanctions on their government, we should realize, no, when we implement sanctions on their government, we're actually making conditions worse for their people. And instead, we should be communicating with their people and spreading ideas of freedom. And there are organizations already doing that. Like there's an organization where I think all they do is they raise to get USB sticks and throw all kinds of like freedom information on there. And smuggle them into North Korea and give them to people so that the people in North Korea can learn to be free. And once enough people once you hit like a critical mass, you're going to have so many people that are not willing to be controlled by the government that the government is going to lose control, and they're going to, they're going to start breaking down into an actual democracy at some point.
Yeah, that's a lot of what happened with the USSR. It was one of the one of the things was that they were starting to see Western television, and they were wondering, hey, how come this maid in the United States can afford like a fur coat, but I can't even, I'm not a maid, I'm working on some factory line. I'm a higher I should be higher in the social status, and I can't even afford food. What's going on here? That's one of the things that kind of broke down the whole culture.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, some of those USB sticks are really important. Yeah, and they fly them over in balloons. It's kind of interesting what's going on in North Korea. But speaking of Trump, so he was just impeached. And I'm loving watching everybody like, yeah, he's finally out of office. No, he wasn't. Yeah, like, he's finally out of office. It's like, that's not what impeachment is.
Right.
So what are your thoughts about the whole impeachment thing going on?
Oh, I'm just waiting for Pence to step up and say, well, I'm the king now, and we're going to electric. Look, here's the thing. This is Congress impeaching the president. These are our quote unquote representatives. They don't give a fuck about us. Nope. They really don't. They hate Trump, so they're getting rid of Trump. They're not doing that for us. You have like, if they cared about us, they would be looking into the ATF and the guns that they've been running. They'd be looking into the Jeffrey Epstein suicide. Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself.
But quotation marks around suicide. But go ahead.
Yeah, air quotes. They'd be looking into all this corruption and all this like missing trillions of dollars in the Federal Reserve, and getting rid of the ATF and the Department of Education, which is a complete failure, which is just like hemorrhaging money and taking it out of the school system. Like they do something about that. They do something about the illegal wars that we're involved in. But no, they're worried that he didn't give money to Ukraine that they shouldn't have been giving in the first place.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane, and they're costing us more money to investigate all this, and it's really just bullshit.
But the late night host says that he's Orange Man bad. You don't say Orange Man bad? You disagree with Orange Man bad?
No. I mean, I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that he's good either. I mean, look at the bill he just passed. That was completely.
What bill he just passed? Did I miss something?
Yeah, it was like an everything, it was like an all-you-can-eat buffet. He raised the smoking age to 21 nationally. I don't know how that's going to work, but supposedly you can't buy cigarettes unless you're 21 now. He increased the military spending. He got funding for the wall. He got funding for what is it? The Space Force. It's insane. And this passed, and they signed it all. And of course, this is all while the distraction of the impeachment is going on. So it's not like he's a great guy, but the shit that they're impeach him over war crimes. He's still involved in these wars, which Congress still hasn't signed. Congress still hasn't declared war on anybody, but we're still dropping bombs. He's still dropping bombs. Just like every other president before him. Charge him with war crimes. Why not? Because
so this is what it
both
says.
Parties are involved.
Yeah, I just pulled it up. So it's the legal age of smoking and e-cigarettes in the United States could raise to 21 in 2020. A new law passed by Congress raised the age from 18 to 21. Now, see, I was concerned because I was like, well, what else are they doing with this? Is it just e-cigarettes and smoking? Because you said smoking. And then it was also for all other tobacco products. And I have a problem with that because I'm a firm believer in these Swedish snus, the Swedish snus thing. I don't know if you're familiar with Swedish snus at all.
Yeah, it's like a dip, right?
It's almost it's like what dip came from. You put it in your upper lip. It's pasteurized, so it doesn't have the like the TSNA levels, which is like the carcinogens. They're like the same as like a cup of coffee. And it's like the safest kind of alternative to smoking. And I'm a big fan of nicotine. I think nicotine is a great neurostimulant. And now this is going to be 21. It's like, but why though?
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, look, I get the idea that you don't want kids to smoke cigarettes and get addicted when they're young. Okay, that's fine. But when you start passing laws and say, well, so if we catch you with a fake ID trying to buy cigarettes, well, you're going to jail. You're getting a criminal record. You're going to create so much more damage than the cigarettes are going to cause. I don't know if that's really true because cigarettes are really pretty bad. But it's like, I get it. But it's like you got to let people make their own bad decisions. I mean, as much as it sucks to say that, people are going to make I made plenty of bad decisions in my life. probably would have been a felon from selling weed for so many years. Just for possession of the amounts that I had at some time.
Theoretically.
It's I openly admit that.
Okay.
But I never got caught. But if I did, I'd be a felon and I wouldn't have any voting rights. I wouldn't be able to own a gun. Like all of this nonsense that comes along with it. And it's like it's so stupid.
Yeah, you can get over an addiction, but not a conviction.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That sucks. Which means that like I'm gonna get more carded every time I go get snooze now. It's like,
yeah, right. Because what was it before? You have to look 30. Yeah. You have to be over 18 and look 30. Now it's gonna be you have to be over 21 and look 50.
Yeah, and I don't look 50 yet. Thank God.
Yeah, it's insane, man.
Yeah. So, are there any caucuses that you support, or is any caucuses supporting you at this moment, or have they made any decisions yet?
I love all the caucuses.
Oh, I love all of them.
Yeah, no, I don't even understand. I don't even know like how many I'm officially a member of. But I like really the way I see it is like, hey, these are the cliques. There's a lot of great people. They all have different groups. I'm friends with a lot of them in the Radical Caucus, the Audacious Caucus, the Pineapple Caucus, the Pineapple Pizza Caucus. There's so many caucuses. The Mises Caucus is a huge one. And I have a lot of friends in those groups, and I'm in like some of their Facebook groups, and I don't know if I'm officially a member of like some of the others, but it's like, it's really great to kind of move from circle to circle. And I guess I've always kind of been that kind of person where I can go, I can kind of, I guess because I don't fit in anywhere, I fit in everywhere. But I think it's really interesting to hear that, they all have a different focus and a focus of interest. And I think that's, if anything, that kind of helps me be a balanced libertarian as far as all my positions, because I don't go into these places and say, well, you guys are wrong. I like to go in and hear, okay, what are your positions, and how can we create, the perfect libertarian utopia where even all of the caucuses can get what they want. So I think that's it's an interesting layout that we got out there.
Yeah. I do like the Audacious Caucus as much as I dislike them, but I'm always a fan of rabble rousing, so
right.
I can't turn them down. And also James Weeks, co-host of the Lolberts. I think he's like probably one of the founding members or something like that. I think that whole thing kind of got created once he got kicked out of the Radical Caucus for dancing in his phone.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah, I think they say it's the radical wing of the Radical Caucus.
Yeah.
Or the extreme wing of the radical. Yeah. So it's, it's interesting though. And, I know they get a lot of hate thrown on them for doing the things that they do, but at the same and I don't agree with everything that they do.
Nobody agrees with everything everyone does. So, I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
we have to learn to kind of get over that and still be able to be friends with people, even if they do a couple things we don't like.
Yeah. You're fine with infighting though, right?
Not really. I mean, I joke about it all the time, but I don't really like to participate. I kind of stay away from all that drama.
Well, you're ready for office, so.
But what pisses me off about that is like when I have a friend who's like, "Oh, don't hang out with that guy because he's doing this and that," and it's like, well, they haven't done anything to offend me, and I haven't seen publicly what you're talking about, so. Like, for all I know, this is just like some gossip that's going around, and I don't want to be in the middle of that. I need to live my own life. I'm not living your life. So, and it's tough because, when you've got two friends that are battling, and it's like, hey guys, like, don't tear me apart through this. Right.
That's right.
Yeah, it does kind of suck, but I think I've been able to, tell them that really is my position. And until somebody becomes a problem for me, I'm still, my friends are my friends. So,
I know people, I'm not going to name names, but anybody who's listened to this show knows exactly who I'm talking about, who's running for president right now. Yeah. Like I know people who still like him in spite of the things that are going around about him. And it's like, all right, that's fine. But, I'm not going to hang out with them. So if you're going to hang out with them, that's fine. Just do it over there, and I'll be over here. And then when you're done, we can hang out. So yeah, I can understand that. But I think we're going to get into some more contentious things now. More contentious than abortion. So what'd you think of the new Star Wars movie? Have you seen it yet?
I haven't. So I have mixed. Well, so here's the thing. I live like maybe an hour from the closest theater, so I got to go take a trip to go see it. Mm-hmm. But I've been hearing that it just sucks so bad that I'm kind of like, do I really? But like at the same time, a lot of people said that about the last couple episodes, and I thought those were good. I mean, you go in with low expectations, and they're decent movies. Yeah, I don't know. So, but probably I will say I'm probably going to go see it in the theaters, because ever since they did like the remakes of the first, episode 4, 5, 6 back in like 2000 something, yeah. I've seen like every Star Wars movie in the theater. So I guess I can't break tradition now, even if it sucks.
Oh, that was the 90s. Yeah, it was right before episode 1 came out. Yeah. They did the run, and then they came out with... So yeah, I ended up seeing the other night, I saw Cats and Rise of Skywalker opening night for both of them. And then I tweeted that I said that I saw both of them, and one was a cringy shit show that appeals to absolutely no one and shits on its 40-year legacy, but had really good music. The other one was about cats.
Yeah, I was thinking like that could work for cats too.
Yeah,
because that's like an old play, right?
Yeah, it was 81. So it's about as old as Star Wars.
Yeah,
or Star Empire, right? I think.
I didn't realize. I've seen all these posts about cats going around, and I didn't realize they just made a movie out of it. I totally. I don't even have a TV. I stay out of that loop.
it's horrifying, and like I'm not a big Cats fan. I don't like hate it. It's like one of my least favorite musicals, and I like Andrew Lloyd Webber. I think Phantom of the Opera is brilliant, and I was like, I saw the trailers for this, and I was like, oh, that looks like pure nightmare fuel. And the movie, it looks like they abandoned it in post-production, but it was terrible. And I was not a fan of Rise of Skywalker. In fact, I thought Rise of Skywalker was worse. But
wow,
other contentious issue. So you're involved with the Pineapple Pizza contest caucus. I know that you run the Legalize PineapplePizza.com. What was the website?
Right, Pineapple Pizza, legalizepineapplepizza.org. But
why though?
Because it's awesome. No, so this.
Go ahead.
Okay, so this I actually caught on to a while ago, and I saw people fighting pineapple pizza, and I'm like, really? And then I was like, you know what? This would be a really great metaphor for the drug war, because nobody should tell you what you can or can't put into your own body, right? So why are we fighting over this? Like, if you don't want, like, I may not agree with what you put on your pizza, but I will defend to the death your right to eat it. Right? That's what we should be saying about this drug war. And what's funny is, so after I started this whole legalized pineapple pizza thing, the Prime Minister of Iceland came out and said, "Man, we should ban pineapple pizza." And that backfired on him. It pissed off a lot of people, and then so he had to come out with a public apology over it. And then a couple of months later, the Department of Homeland Security issued a memo. And if you go to legalizepineapplepizza.org, the memo is there. And it said, the Russians are trying to infiltrate our social media and get us to fight over little things like whether or not pineapple belongs on pizza. So this is Department of Homeland Security legitimate threat now.
So wait. Are you saying that the only reason why I hate pineapple on pizza is because of the Russians?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Damn it.
Yes.
Damn, Russians are into everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm of the opinion, like, you can put whatever you want on a pizza. I think it's pineapples and tomatoes don't mix well. They just don't. But I am an aspiring pizzaiola, so I mean, if you want to put pineapple on pizza, it's fine. When I make pineapple pizza, I don't use tomato sauce. I use sweet chili sauce, and it's almost like a dessert. It's really good.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, now that you mention like pineapple and tomato sauce don't go together, I'm thinking like, yeah, that really does sound kind of disgusting. How have I been? But I guess a lot of the pizza that I get, it doesn't have. Yeah, it's not like it has like a whole lot of sauce on there usually.
Yeah, it doesn't have a whole lot of pineapple either. So
yeah, maybe that's why. Hey, the power just came back.
Oh yay! You're not bugging out anymore.
Yeah, beeping is done.
Now you're not a real libertarian. Now you're on the grid. So I have one more question to ask you after this, but I think that it'll be a closing question. But
right.
like, where can they find more about your campaign, where you stand on things and all that stuff?
Right. So Behrman2020.com is the website that's got links to all the social media. So there's YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We're always posting awesome stuff. You can donate there at the page, Behrman2020.com. And right now we're trying to raise 1,000 donations of $5 a month. So if you can spare $5 a month, buy me a cup of coffee every month. Coffee. $5 a month, and that's going to get us enough money to get to all these conventions that we're going to. Right now we're committed to go 10, but there are at least a dozen others we'd like to go to. So if we can secure all those donations, we'll be able to make it to more of these. If you want to give more than that, you're absolutely welcome to. And if you want to volunteer, we have a lot of really great information that we're sending out. So we've got basically flyers that explain taxation is theft. What's that all about? How are we going to pay for police and fire departments? We have this little trifold brochure that's got a lot of really great information out there, and we send it out to volunteers for free, or you can make a donation to cover the cost. But we want to get this information out there to as many people as we can, and we already have tens of thousands of these things going out. Probably more than 20 or 30 or 40,000 if you include like all these little flyers and everything that we have. Now, another thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be partnering. We have this thing called the SWAT team, which is skilled warriors against or abolishing taxes, just because, SWAT, whatever. We're going to kick down doors and shut the government down. Shut the taxes down. I shouldn't say shut the government down. That sounds terrible to people outside of our echo chamber. But the idea with the SWAT team is we're not doing this on our own. We're doing this with a partnership with other candidates who are running for U.S. Congress, state house, mayor, dog catcher, everything else. And what we're going to do is, so we've got Nick Wildstar, who's running for governor in Fresno, California. As an example, we're going to partner with him. We're going to have flyers that have all this information about how taxation is theft. It's going to have both of our images on there. So when people get this, it's not just one crazy guy with a big yellow hat that's running for president. It's, oh, wow, there's somebody running for a local office too. And we also have twice as many volunteers because we've got my volunteers and his volunteers. We've got twice as much money to spend on printing these things because we've got my fundraising and his fundraising. And we share those costs. And we're able to reach so many more people. So that's if you go to Behrman2020.com/SWAT. If you're interested in running for an office and you want to work with us, that's where you would go and fill out a form and give us some information, and we'll reach out to you. And yeah, that's going to be a huge thing that we're doing with this campaign also. But yeah, everything is on the website as far as policies and platforms and donations and joining and volunteering and everything.
That's good. And I'll put all those links in the doobly-doo. But
awesome.
So, is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
Absolutely. The best Christmas movie ever.
Not my president.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
All right. Worms, man.